All right. Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're tuning in from. Thank you for joining us. This is COSA Headlines. I'm Wendy Noss. I'm the Executive Director of the Consortium of Social Science Associations, for those of you I may not have met previously. And this monthly-ish webinar is our opportunity to engage with our members on topics of timely importance generally, opportunities to let you engage with those who sit in important seats in the government. Excuse me. Hopefully you're here because you are a member of or affiliated in some way with one of COSA's member organizations. The sort of best kept secret, I think, is that if you are a student, a faculty member, an administrator, if you are affiliated in some way, a member of, on the governing council of any of these organizations, you are automatically a COSA member and you can participate in all of the things that we prepare for you, such as this members only webinar. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you'll spread the word about these events. If you know of other organizations, we're always looking to broaden our umbrella and bring more into the COSA family. So if you didn't see your second favorite organization listed on our membership list, you can easily join, and there's lots of information on our website for that. But you did not come here today to talk about COSA and our membership. We're here today because we have a very special guest. Dr. Robert Santos is the director of the U.S. Census Bureau, and he is a, dare I say, longtime friend of the social behavioral science community, and is himself affiliated with COSA member organizations and has been for a long time. He has been doing incredible work at the Census Bureau, and he has, I think, lots to update us on. So this discussion is meant to provide an update on some of the notable things happening at the Bureau, but also to hear from you if you have any questions, if this is your first time maybe engaging with the Census Bureau and you want to dig in a little bit deeper. Feel free, this can be as interactive as you would like it to be. So without further ado, I am going to turn things over to Dr. Santos.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Hope you're doing well. I'll try to keep you awake. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you today and to give you an update on what's happening with our agency. But before we begin, I'll tell you a secret. I feel oddly at home in this forum. And maybe it's because I've had the honor of serving as president for two of the COSA member organizations, the American Statistical Association and the American Association for Public Opinion Research. And, you know, I learned from these leadership positions how valuable COSA was in serving and representing the interests of its consortium members. So thank you, COSA, for your past and continued support of the Census Bureau. And thank you, COSA members, for your past and continued support. I'll just say personally that if it had not been for professional association membership, I don't know where I'd be today. It was invaluable in terms of learning, in terms of providing me with leadership opportunities. And it's really a place of comfort now that when I go to various conferences, including many of those in the COSA community and membership, for which I don't have membership. I still feel at home with that, knowing how valuable these communities are to the social sciences. Okay, so let me get to our topic. Okay, so we, the Census Bureau, I hope you know, we pride ourselves in being a leader of providing quality data about our nation's people and economy. We conduct 3 censuses, not 1, 3, And we conduct over 130 annual and monthly surveys. So just about every day of the year, we are actively out soliciting information from businesses or people or whatever. Our data collections gather population information on demographics, on education, employment, health, business, and the economy, on international trade, and much more. We provide a wealth of data by a variety of key demographic variables, such as race and ethnicity, sex, disability, income, veteran status, and so forth. And these data are often broken down by geography. Moreover, the data help us assess equity and identify underserved communities. They can inform the public, businesses, policymakers in advancing equity and proposing effective data-driven solutions. And we use these data to make tools that help data users get the information that they need in a digestible and timely and accurate way. Okay, I'm going to start my update now by talking about the Census Bureau's Transformation and Modernization Initiative. I'll note something that I think we all realize to begin with, and that is that we live in a time of great change for the federal statistical system, not just the Census Bureau. And the Census Bureau, indeed all of our federal statistical agencies, face new and increasingly complex challenges. As we advance into the 21st century, we're faced with new and complex data user needs, with data collection challenges, with the need for improved collaboration among stakeholders and partners, and with the demands of doing more with less, right? We're also faced with the proliferation of alternative unofficial data products, and with the quick advancement of both new technologies and stronger computing power. We have historically met our mission through our censuses and surveys. But in this day and age, censuses and surveys alone can no longer answer the questions completely or even quickly enough to satisfy the modern thirst for more data all the time. We need innovative approaches that combine new and traditional data sources. And to do this, we need to align our talent and our resources to meet those challenges. Modernization introduces new opportunities to increase the timeliness, the relevance, and the value of our data and our official statistics. But modernization, which includes the latest technology and statistical methods, while necessary, is nonetheless insufficient. We also need to transform our way of thinking. This includes how we think about data, how we recognize their relevance in a rapidly changing society, and how we meet the ever-evolving data needs of the public. That's why we're engaged in an enterprise-level transformation and modernization initiative. It's a multi-year effort to evaluate and improve current processes, infrastructures, and mindsets. We must ensure that we equitably collect, analyze, and disseminate information that reflects the changing nature of our nation's population and economy. Now, the Census Bureau is the largest federal statistical agency. And I already mentioned that we conduct many censuses and surveys. As such, our transformation and modernization effort is necessarily multi-pronged. It involves a community of the whole approach. It combines both an internal common strategy of modernization with continuous external outreach to engage stakeholders and partners. Why? Well, we recognize that we cannot complete our mission alone. We need the active engagement of stakeholders, partners, and communities. We seek to communicate to the public the value proposition of our statistical data products. We seek to cultivate and grow trust with the public, especially hard to count and historically undercounted populations and their communities. So as we go about our work, it's critical that I, and more importantly, we at the Census Bureau, connect with our partners, with our stakeholders, our data users, policymakers, and the public. We need to understand their needs, their concerns, and their perspectives on matters related to our statistical data products, to our methods, and to our measurements. We need to work better with each other, and we need to learn from each other. That's why a principal priority of mine as the director is to seek out, to listen to, and converse with a multitude of diverse voices across our nation. We are and have been actively engaging the public. We recognize the value and the importance of different perspectives. They help us to be innovative and creative, and ultimately to produce accurate, relevant, and useful data on our nation's people, places, and economy. Toward that end, I continue to make a concerted effort to engage stakeholders, to engage partners and local communities across the nation. Hey, I've met with hundreds of data users across America, including professional and scientific associations. I've met with hundreds of partners, with state, local, and tribal government officials, with community groups and businesses. I've even met with pastors and teachers and students. In all of this, our goal is to strategically organize and engage a widening diversity of talent and stakeholders as part of achieving our transformation and modernization goals. By leveraging our core values of scientific integrity, objectivity, transparency, and independence, we will strengthen our data portfolio. This is key to combining let me start over again. The key here is to combine technological advances and rigorous research with innovation and creativity through the inclusion and consideration of diverse perspectives, which requires engaging communities. Again, this is a multi-year, enterprise-wide effort to evaluate and improve current processes, infrastructures, and mindsets. Our transformation and modernization plans run through the fiscal year of 2027. So let's turn to some key aspects of our transformation and modernization effort. They're structured around three integrated anchors. The first is our greatest asset, our employees. Through numerous engagement activities, our diverse employees themselves are shaping the Census Bureau into a 21st century premier statistical agency. Secondly, we're committed to leveraging the principles of equity, diversity, and inclusion and accessibility as a necessary part of creating better science, better methods, and more accurate and relevant data. We're advancing the development of human capital strategies to recruit, develop, and retain a dynamic and diverse workforce. And finally, the third component is a modern, product-focused ecosystem. We seek to modernize and integrate the tools and technology needed to shift the agency into a data-centric organization. By examining our scientific methods, technology, human capital, and infrastructure, we're empowered to continue to be the nation's trusted provider and design future programs that complement alternative data sources. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about meeting our data user needs. So let's start by recognizing that transformation and modernization are part of a journey. They're not a destination. The approach we're taking allows us to progress towards meeting the needs of our customers in new and innovative ways. That approach includes advancing a culture that embraces diversity, equity, and inclusion to help spur opportunity, innovation, and excellence. We're developing our workforce and leveraging existing data sets, programs, and activities while we develop and implement new strategies to advance equity with data, both internally and externally. Conducting outreach and creating products that attract new end users. That's really important. For example, we have a product called the Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes Tool. And it was developed for students and parents who are sending their kids to school and educational institutions. And that product helps answer questions like, how are program graduates performing in the labor market after a year or after 5 years? Are they working in the industries that they actually trained for? We also have a tool called Supporting Emergency Management and COVID-19 Response. That's an integrated data resource that informs all aspects of emergency management. This tool combined existing geographic, demographic, and economic data to facilitate mitigation and preparedness, and as well as response and recovery during the COVID. We're providing more acceptable, timely, and relevant data products as well. So for example, we have something called the Household and Business Pulse Surveys. Remember those? They focus on quickly and efficiently collecting data in ways that reflect people's lives and how they've been impacted by the pandemic in areas including employment and spending, vaccination, health, mental health, food sufficiency, housing, rent assistance, and so forth. The pulse surveys, they laid the groundwork for higher frequency, rapid data collections. It was a deliberate shift from gold standard, high quality data collection like the ACS, which takes over a year to produce, to focusing on a data quality element that people don't often appreciate as much, which is timeliness. We need the data right now. We need to know what's going on with society and to track those trends. And maybe it's not gold standard, but it still is incredibly important information so we can make decisions about our nation. We're also producing new products without increasing burden to the public. So for example, we have something called the Community Resilience Estimates. That product is a visualization, and it was developed to measure the capacity of individuals to cope with external stresses and impacts of a natural disaster. It estimates the at-risk populations using a number of factors that they're living with at different geographies down to the tract level. They provide actionable data with increased granularity, timeliness, and accuracy without additional data collection. And they still adhere to strict privacy protections. It's a tool, by the way, that's used by FEMA, HHS, and the Economic Development Administration here in the Department of Commerce, as well as many others. Now, I know that through these efforts to transform and modernize, we will advance towards a 21st century premier federal statistical agency that provides our nation with the data that we need. So that's the broad overview of our agency and where we're going, okay? So now I'll turn to talk about our flagship survey, the American Community Survey, the ACS. And I'll update you on something that I hope you're aware of and are very interested in, the disability content and SOGI testing, those two items. So first, I want to go over where we are in our current process to revise the questions on the American Community Survey, particularly as it relates to the disability content. Now, I know many stakeholders and members of the public care deeply about this topic. The process of altering ACS content helps ensure that any proposed changes are necessary and will produce quality, useful information for our nation. An important step in this process is providing an opportunity for the public to provide feedback. In October of 2023, we posted a Federal Register notice, a call for feedback, seeking public feedback on the current ACS content revision cycle for several topics. Disability was one, but it also included stuff like household roster and educational attainment, health insurance coverage, labor force questions, and stuff like solar panels and electric vehicles and sewage disposal even. These changes were to begin in 2025. In response to that Federal Register notice, that request for feedback, we received more than 12,000 comments, the vast majority of which expressed concerns with the proposed changes to the disability questions. Now, we, along with the National Center for Health Statistics, or NCHS, carefully reviewed the public feedback. And based on that feedback, we decided to retain the current ACS disability questions, as is for the collection year 2025 that's coming up. So we're not implementing the proposed changes to disability questions. Instead, we'll continue our work with stakeholders, the outreach I'm talking about, and the public more generally, to better understand data needs on disability and assess which, if any, revisions are needed to the ACS and across the federal statistical system for that matter, so that we can better address those needs. The Census Bureau has now submitted the final proposal to OMB for OMB approval regarding the changes proposed to the other topics that I had talked about, the solar panels and the household roster, that type of stuff. The final proposal was accompanied by a Federal Register notice that appeared in March of this year. And it contained our final recommendations and again sought some public commentary and feedback. But just to be clear, this proposal does not include any changes to the existing disability questions. We seek to engage further with the public on the disability topic, as I said. We note that a significant theme from the comments that we did receive, those 12,000 comments, was a desire from the community for more comprehensive engagement. So in the spirit of a whole of government approach, the Census Bureau, NCHS, OMB, and other federal partners have been working together with disability stakeholders and others to make that happen. Specifically, the Census Bureau, NCHS, OMB have been working with the National Council on Disabilities, the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, the National Disability Rights Network, and the Consortium of Constituents with Disabilities. Collectively, our goal here is to plan and convene a meeting on the data needs and data uses related to disability. The meeting will be broadly inclusive of federal agency disability stakeholders, disability community representatives, data users, researchers, and disability advocates. More details on that meeting will be provided soon. We look forward to that meeting and from learning and further exploring the information and data needs of the disability community. So the next thing, remember there were two things. The next thing I'm going to talk about will be the ACS testing of questions on sexual orientation and gender identity, or SOGI. Earlier this month, we released a second Federal Register notice that gives the public a 30-day period to comment on the proposed plan for testing ACS SOGI questions. You can find that notice at regulations.gov. So please, if you can, provide your impact on the SOGI questions we're planning to test. Now, the cognitive testing of the SOGI questions already began, and the reports on that are due at the end of 2024. But we are going to conduct a test later this summer on the self-response aspect in the ACS, which is, we send out and we expect people to self-respond. And if they don't respond, then we go knocking on doors and calling and such. But the self-response portion of that test will be conducted later this summer. And the non-response piece, where we subsample and go after the non-respondents, that's scheduled to be conducted via phone and in person in spring of 2025. Okay, next I'll give an update on the 2030 census preparations. We're doing a lot of exciting work, folks, and we're doing a lot of research ahead of the next decennial population census. In January, we announced that our initial operational plan for the 2030 census will be released early in 2025, and we'll be holding a major field test in 2026. We released details about the 2026 test in a webinar on April 30th. It's available for view. It was recorded. In March, we announced the 23 members of our new 2030 Census Advisory Committee, and that will begin meeting this summer. The orientation is actually going on right now, or just went on this week. Now, in April, we released strategy documents outlining how we're approaching fundamental aspects of our census preparations, including stakeholder engagement. Oh, let me point out that we have a redesigned website. It's census.gov/2030census. The content there will give you a better idea of all that we're doing. And there are many resources that are posted there. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Now, as part of our commitment to open and transparent communication, we'll be continuing our series of webinars to share information about our preparations. And I hope that you will be following along. Our main goal for the 2030 census and for every decennial census is a complete and accurate count of the nation's population. To accomplish that, it's so important that we engage with diverse voices and perspectives. We can't do this alone. After 2020, stakeholders asked us specifically to do more to engage them earlier in the decade. And guess what? We listened and we're acting on that. Over the last several months, we've held a series of community meetings about the 2030 census with various stakeholder groups. These include community-based organizations, complete count committees in 2020 that existed in 2020, state complete count commissions, rural and migrant stakeholders, immigrant advocacy groups, disability rights, and low literacy stakeholders, and finally, state and local governments. And this is in addition to all of the external engagements I've been doing all over the country for the past 2.5 years. We're involved in a continuous engagement operation. We need to hear from people across the nation about how to reach hard to count and historically undercounted populations, how to leverage technology, how to collect information in an easy and efficient manner. We need to work with stakeholders to identify hard-to-find populations and to tailor our strategies to reach them in culturally relevant ways. For example, as you may be aware, young children ages 0 to 4 had the largest undercount in 2020 of any group. In early April, we released a new experimental state and county demographic analysis that estimated net coverage error of young children in the 2020 census, again, at the county level. These estimates will help us prepare for the 2030 census. Understanding the geographic distribution of the coverage of young children in 2020 can help us get a better understanding of where and why younger children were missed. And guess what? A majority of young children are persons of color. So our work on young children will also help address historically undercounted demographic, racial and ethnic populations. Just a reminder that we recognize, again, that we cannot complete our mission alone. We need this community of the whole approach that involves support from the wonderfully diverse and increasingly diverse people of our nation. I hope you'll join us on our journey to the next decennial census count and to provide your valuable input and feedback. Well, that does it for my update and what I wanted to do. And thank you again for hosting me, Kosa. It's been a pleasure to tell you about how modernization is reinvigorating our Census Bureau. And I look forward to working together in a future where official statistics are stronger, where our organizations are more resilient, and our products are more specific and responsive to 21st century data needs. And I will now open it up for questions, and let's just say, ask me anything.
Thank you so much. Every time I hear an update on anything related to the census, I'm in awe of everything that that you and all of your dedicated colleagues do on a daily basis. I think, I know enough to know that the Census Bureau is not just the decennial census, but I'm always just dumbfounded by all of the work that you do. So thank you for that. We do have a little bit of time for questions if folks want to unmute or raise your virtual hand or however you want to do it. But I will selfishly ask a couple if no one else has any questions yet.
Steve has one after you, I think.
I'm waiting for Steve to put his hand up. Yeah. I wanted to ask if you could go into any more detail about the trust issues.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, that's something that social and behavioral science and all science post-COVID is dealing with is trust in science and experts and data. I'm curious, how that's playing out in your agency.
Well, there's a couple of ways for me to look at this. So I guess I'll leave the methods piece till later. And I'll say that, based on everything that went on up to and including the 2020 census, we recognized just by looking, take a look at we have a data visualization map of self-response across the nation. You can dive down to the census tract level, I believe. And you can see what happened. Basically, suburbia had really high response rates, and you go into inner city, and that's where you get lower, sometimes very low response rates. Tends to be communities of color, neighborhoods of color, rural areas, the same type of thing going on. You get lower response rates than in suburbia. And part of that is reflective of the fact that we were in a pandemic. We extended the self-response time for online. And so there were opportunities to do that. So we know that, and we recognize that there were trust issues. We also recognize that community groups came forward in a way totally unexpected and that we totally appreciate and that we highly valued. And they came up with innovative ways of getting folks to understand the value proposition of the data and to encourage folks to participate. So I've been around the country talking to folks, and folks have told me about, I've talked to local community groups, and, someone in one place said, oh, we got this ice cream truck. And instead of playing the music going down the road, we were saying, please fill out your census forms. I went to Fruitvale in Oakland. It's a Latino neighborhood, immigrant neighborhood. And what they did is they created these loteria cards. So instead of having the little icons of, the fish and the scorpion, the spider and stuff, it had little census related icons. So you could play loteria with the kids and get them to talk to their parents and stuff so they could understand the value of participating. There were like lots of really creative things going on, which reinforced this notion that we needed a continuous relationship, and we needed to learn from communities about what they did in a way that they felt was more culturally relevant to them. And that's why we have as a priority then this overarching continuous engagement with the public. Everything from elected officials, Congress, um, chambers of commerce, private businesses, community groups, community nonprofit organizations, service organizations like Feeding America and things of that sort, schools, universities, etc. And the idea is to, between censuses, focus and speak to them, do outreach, provide our data dissemination specialists that say, we can do webinars for you, we can go and show you the data, um, and show the value proposition of the data for their local community, for community development, community needs assessments, entrepreneurs. We have data tools for entrepreneurs called Census Business Builder. Just amazing stuff where you put data together from both economic data and demographic data and such. And by doing that, you can activate and sustain and nurture and cultivate the pre-existing community members that helped us out, and they can use the data to do their thing and expand the influence and recognition of the brand of the Census Bureau data as being valuable. And we think that that's essential in creating what is, in essence, a trusted messenger ecosystem throughout the country. And because we know from our own research that it's not enough for the first Latino director of the Census Bureau to say, come to your census. Folks aren't going to participate in that. They're not going to participate if it's an elected official, sometimes even a mayor or city council has limited impact. But if you get down to the pastor talking to the congregation, the teachers talking to parents, and neighbors talking to each other, that's where the action is. And that's what part of this overarching engagement is trying to do. So we're all in it, and we're doing as much as we can. And I'm doing what I can to sort of like plow the field, to make sure that the ground is broken up and ready to sow the seeds of further engagement, to grow these communities that are working with each other, and to create trust. Now, there are different elements to all of this. I mean, we recognize that cultural relevance in terms of messaging is absolutely key. So we need to be doing more to empower and engage with local community groups, in terms of what is it that we need to give them? We can't give them a package that they just turn around and provide to the neighborhoods, because it may not be culturally relevant, but the content might be good. They just need to do it in their own. So we're working to create those tools in terms of our longer term vision. To help inform that, we have a long-standing data collection program, and I forget what the name is, but it's like, census, or I forget what the name is, but it's basically, it tracks trust in government. It's a survey, tracks trust in government, recognition of the Census Bureau brand, and things of that sort. And it gets good information, but what I always tell my beloved Census Bureau colleagues is, the more interesting folks aren't the ones that respond to the survey, it's the ones that don't respond to the survey. And that's where I think it's really important to include qualitative research among those folks who do not participate in government surveys, so that we can learn from them what are more culturally relevant ways to get their attention, to promote participation and things of that sort, and to understand the value of the data. I guess the final thing I'll say about that is that everything's tied together. So it's really, really, really important for us to be able to create data tools that are of value, not just to the high-end data users, but especially to my favorite data users. And that's the people out there that don't even recognize that the data exists. The non-data users. To me, that's an ocean of potential. And so we're creating more and more data visualizations where you just like click and you can go dive down and such, and you can do heat maps and things of that sort, so that people can more readily access and understand, even if they are total data novices. That's really important. I think that's a part of our messaging, and it ties together sort of everything from soliciting for surveys to administrative record stuff to data products to data dissemination, et cetera, all together as part of our overarching effort to do engagement and to create trusted messenger networks. That's a long answer, sorry.
No, it's incredible. I several things you say strikes me. I can't help but think about COVID vaccine uptake and lack thereof, because there was this absence of cultural competency and tailoring the messages. And any social scientist will tell you, you have to get to the local community level and understand context for these things to take root. So I think you guys are ahead of the curve, at least in terms of your other federal agencies, just when it comes to this. I'm curious, though, building off that a little bit, in order to sustain that, right? You can't just go into a community once, get the answer you need, and then, come back 10 years from now. Does this require, you think, a new type of employee within the Census Bureau, like more communication specialists or social scientists, social workers? What would it take to make this a sustained thing?
Yeah, it requires like rethinking how we do our business. So I guess people may or may not recognize that we have like probably 150 to 200 people in a communications department or division within the Census Bureau. They do everything from social media to media campaigns to webinars to this or that. They help with blogs and they create messaging for the public or for Congress or for whatever audience is needed. And we are more intentionally leveraging them so that they are no longer at the end of a process where you throw a table over the transom and say, okay, like get that out into the public, but instead bring them in more at the beginning and say, here's a survey product, here's an issue we're dealing with. How do we craft even our solution in a way that's creates a more effective messaging towards the back end. I always talk about the three sort of legs of the stool, or three things that need to be intertwined when you're dealing with issues like differential privacy or things of that sort. The first is, what is the solution? And the second is, how did you implement it? And the third is communication. How did you communicate it? How were you transparent? How did you bring in stakeholder engagement? And if those three things aren't intertwined and lockstep together throughout the process, you might as well not have done started it, because any one of those things can derail the whole thing. So we're in that process of, we have the solution, we're doing the continuous engagement, we're involved in the implementation, and at the same time we're bringing in external feedback so that we can revise and continue.
Oh, that's fantastic. I do have one final question, but I wanted to see if anyone else wanted to get in before I asked it.
Steve has a question.
Well, I'm happy to ask a question. But I first want to echo what Wendy said. It's just, how impressive what y'all are doing, and Director Santos, as you are going everywhere and anywhere. I mean, thank you for all you are doing. I mean, it just, you just seem so in your element, and you just seem like the perfect person for this. And I've got to say that I just came from an event hosted by the Royal Statistical Society where they had done a review of the United Kingdom statistical system, and there were several speakers, and at least two said, well, it's really important to have a survey methodologist at the helm. And they mentioned that the current director of the Census Bureau has a couple decades of experience. So, it's not just, it's the international community is thrilled. So clear, I mean, you're a master at outreach and in communications. And I know that an important part of your audience is Congress. So I kind of wanted to maybe get hear from you. What do you find is particularly resonating right now? And I have a lot to learn here, but I know one thing that I try not to do is talk about the need for modernization. And I'm not saying you do that. You lead with, well, here's the benefits, or here's the worries, and this needs to be implemented, and here's what you get out of it. And oh, by the way you do this is whatever the modernization is. But I'm curious what do you find is resonating, and what maybe could I learn from that?
Yeah, what's resonating in Congress is what always resonates in Congress. Efficiency, accountability. So show us that you can do whatever you do at a lower cost. And we'll help you with that by doing a budget cut, and that's pretty much it. In the meantime, what we try to do is to make sure that anyone, either the congressional staff or the representatives or the senators, that they understand that we are doing all that we can to create the most accurate data and to provide it as quickly as possible. Having said that, these elected representatives are doing what they do best, which is representing their specific constituencies. So we often get the result of some constituency approaching an elected member saying, here's a concern. And so we basically get that, and then we need to respond. And that's actually good, because it typically opens up an opportunity to have a more detailed and nuanced conversation to a decision-making body so that they understand that we are doing all that we can in a way that wouldn't necessarily, it would be much more difficult and challenging to do if it was a member of the public themselves who do not have staff, not educated, but staff who know about census data and such. So often we're working with the census, with the congressional staff. Sometimes we're working with congressmen or women themselves or senators, and talking directly with them. So we've done both, and we're really we feel we're pretty effective in that. But at the end of the day, they come with the issues that are of importance to their communities, their specific communities. A lot of it historically has been, we think you undercounted, this city or that county or this state or whatever. How are you gonna fix it? That type of thing. So
I'm sure that's especially true when apportionment comes around and they want their counts a certain way. All right. Well, I wanted to ask one final question that I kind of ask all of the agency folks who come before us, and that is, if someone was new to the census, they were coming to you sort of for the first time as a researcher, and looking to be more involved, to understand more, to whatever it might be. I first want to second everything you said about the Federal Register notices. For anyone listening, if you're subscribed to the COSA Washington update, we try to catch those as they come out and put them out for you, for opportunities to submit comments and whatnot. But what would you tell someone new to census, how they can do more?
New to Census as a census employee or new to Census?
No,
as an
member of the
external
community. Yeah,
from the community. I'd basically say that we have a lot more information and data than anyone thinks possible. We have petabytes of data. It's just incredible how much we have. And I'd also mention just me being me and, having, 40 careers, mostly in public policy research. I'd stress to them that life is necessarily interconnected. And so if you have, if they come to me and they say, I'm a housing researcher, I'll say, well, recognize that housing is connected with employment, which is connected with health insurance and what you can afford and hunger issues and this and that and education and such. So make sure that you look at the full breadth and think through the full breadth of this particular issue you're dealing with. And guess what? We'll have pretty much any and all of the data that you have. And then allow them to also understand that to the extent that they need to get beyond across the firewall to the micro data, that there are mechanisms to do that through the federal statistical research data centers.
that's great advice. And the interlinkages, we could do a whole separate conversation about that. So let me thank you again very much for sharing this quick drive-by with us, but I definitely, you whetted my appetite to learn more, and I hope everyone else as well. So thank you so very much for presenting to us today.
It was an honor. Thank you for the invite.
Of course. Before we lose the rest of you, just some closing remarks here. Hopefully you can see this. If you're not a regular COSA Headlines participant, maybe you will be going forward. There's lots of ways that you can stay involved in COSA activities. Again, if you're affiliated with any of our organizations in any way, this is for you. So please make sure you're getting the COSA Washington update. That's where you'll find updates from the Census Bureau, from any federal agency, what's going on in Congress. We are in the process of deciding our next headlines speaker. There are several federal agencies we still want to hear from, but timing is an issue. So stay tuned for that. But you can see the recordings of our past conversations on our website. Go to COSA.org and go to events. And there you'll see our conversations with NIH and STEM education at NSF, National Bureau of Justice, Bureau of National Institute of Justice and Bureau of Justice Statistics. And that's where we're going to be collecting all of these valuable conversations. And then, of course, just follow us on social. We'll follow you back. We love to highlight opportunities of great work in the social and behavioral sciences, examples of why investment in these sciences is so important. So please engage with us as much as you can. And we hope to talk to you and see you all again very, very soon. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye, everyone.